Welcome to the October 30th edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want more, visit us at nuljobsnetwork.com. Today's DCSS, Mastering Messaging, Enhance Your Professional Communication Skills for Career Success, features Gabrielle Gambrell. We'll provide impactful tips on sharpening your communications approach to advance in today's workplace. Gabrielle, are you with us?
I am here and so excited to be here.
You know we're excited to have you here. Listen, I was just telling Corey and Dave pre-show that I was shocked that you hadn't been on the DCSS yet. You know, I have so much respect for you and your work.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just like, wow, that was a major miss that I haven't had her on. But you're on now. So this is what we're
So
going to
happy to
do.
be here. Yes.
I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, Gabrielle Gambrell. I am Chief Communications Officer of Hachette Book Group, which is one of the world's largest book publishers. We publish everything that you can think of. I've also had some other accolades. I will say I've got the gift of gab. I'm a storyteller at heart. It's what I do. I tell all types of good stories, emphasis on inclusive stories, stories that empower diverse communities, stories that empower us. And so, in addition to that, I'm also a professor at Columbia University as well as NYU, and I founded an award-winning agency, Gift of Gabrielle.
Gabrielle, listen, we have an amazing audience on the Digital Career Success Series. I know they're in the chat, chiming in, letting everybody know where they're from, letting people connect with them on LinkedIn and things of that nature. Excited to have you here. So with that being said, let's just back up just a little. I have to ask you this question. I know you're an LA girl at heart.
I am.
You went to Yankees or Dodgers? Who you with right now? What's going on?
Listen, I'm a proud New Yorker. I've been in New York my entire adult life, but I am born and raised in Los Angeles, California. And so we are rooting for the Dodgers. And the Dodgers will win the World Series. So that's that.
I accept that. I had to ask. I wasn't sure, but I had to tap in.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, listen, I think we first kind of connected. It might have been like 2016 or something like that.
Mhm.
I know we've done things. You actually came on my radio show in Philly. You called in and supported,
I
and we
did.
did the Indeed Jobcast together a few years back. That was amazing.
Huh?
And
Absolutely.
I've just watched your career. So I think for this conversation, it's probably appropriate for you to kind of walk us through, like you're doing this communications thing. And I think you've worked for 3 of the 4 major networks. Am I correct?
I
Yeah.
have. So, um, undergraduate degree is in broadcast journalism, television, video, film. And so I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, then pivoted to wanting to be a TV producer, interned at ABC my senior year of college at Iona University, where I'm very fortunate and proud to serve on the board of Iona University. And so during my senior year, intern at ABC, live with Regis and Kelly, with the late, great Regis Philbin, amazing person. And so I was hired after my internship, which is a dream. That's what you want in most cases. You want to show yourself in and be hired. So I was hired at ABC, worked there for a little bit in production, in talent relations, then made a pivot, went back to school for my master's. My master's is in sports and entertainment, public relations, corporate communications. So upon going back to graduate school, I pivoted from ABC to CBS Corporation. And I was there for about 7 years, started in the advertising sales department, because sometimes you got to get in where you fit in. And so I took an assistant role in advertising sales, which was helpful because I learned the business and how television stays on the air even to this day with all of the competitors of streaming and all that. So understanding how businesses make money is really, really important. Upon finishing my master's in communications, moved over to the corporate communications team, a role was created for me because as I was an assistant in the sales team, I was volunteering, doing free work for the corporate communications team. A role was created for me. And so I did everything from supporting the Grammys to the Super Bowl to the US Open to March Madness to 60 Minutes to CBS Mornings. And it was an amazing time. In short, during my time there was a lot of conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are these really big media companies doing to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion? So I came up with a dynamic DEI communications plan during my time at CBS. Became publicist for the chief diversity officer, who's now one of my great mentors. And that caught the attention of competitor NBC. And NBC said, hey, come over here, do what you did at CBS, build out our DEI communication strategy. And so I did that. I left CBS for after about 7 years, went to Comcast NBC Universal, where I was there for 3 years, leading all diversity communications.
Amazing story. I had to have you tell that career story because that's really what this session is all about, right? How
Totally.
people are communicating their career stories for advancement. And clearly, you are an SME in that particular space. I just love that story and appreciate it so much. All right, so we're going to jump in right now. Let's talk a little bit about the art of storytelling. You just told an amazing story about
Yes.
your career path. So how do people mimic that and tell their career story or just tell their story?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think it's really important to recognize that we're all storytellers. We have been telling stories since we were adolescents, since we were children. In elementary school, when you had to read a book and get in front of the class and do a book report, that is telling a story. So we know how to tell stories. And so an easy way of identifying your career story is to ask who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who are you? I'm Gabby. I've got the gift of gab. I'm a storyteller. What is it that I do? I tell stories. Where do I do it? Any way, any platform, multi-channel storytelling. I'm here to tell stories. How do I do it? I'm able to cohesively identify what's trending, what's hot, what people want to know, what's topical, what's important in culture right now. So to give you an example, as we were just talking about the World Series, baseball sports impacts culture. I work for a publishing company, one of the largest in the world. We've read a plethora of books about the Yankees, about the Dodgers, about Americans' pastime of baseball. And so, because the Yankees and Dodgers are in the World Series together, let's find all the books we wrote about the Dodgers. Let's find all the books about the Yankees. Let's find books about baseball and why it has such an impact on American culture. And now I'm telling stories about that. Now I'm speaking to reporters about that. Now I'm speaking to media and creating social media content about that. So that how is kind of finding an opportunity to make a connection to something that's relevant, that's trending, that's topical.
You know, just in speaking about storytelling at work, right, and career storytelling. So if we follow this blueprint, how do we know who we should be telling our story to?
Yes, that's a great question. Your success is dependent upon other people, not you. Your success is dependent upon other people. Your success is often dependent upon your boss. If your boss doesn't know what you're working on all day long, if your boss doesn't know how you're getting to the other side, if your boss doesn't know your accomplishments, that's a hurdle right there. And then beyond your boss, having sponsors, having advocates, which we'll talk more about during this session, but other people that are like, hey, I need Gabby to work on this project. She's really good. I enjoy working with her. A lot of your success in America, corporate America, in the workplace is based on people liking you, people enjoying working with you, people respecting what you bring to the table. And that goes a really long way.
You know, I'm thinking about storytelling, and well, it's been a while since I've kind of been in an office in a corporate setting, right?
Uh-huh.
I've branched out and done this entrepreneurship thing, but
Yeah.
internal and external communications. Are there any tools or tips or tricks that you kind of stand on when you kind of communicate within your organization?
Absolutely. I would say internal communications is so very important. as the professor I am, I'll back up and give the definition of public relations. So, public relations is a management tool in which one's success or failure is dependent upon. With good PR, you will succeed, and with negative PR, you're going to fail. You're destined for failure. And so, internally, if your employees, if your company are not advocates, are not cheerleaders for the work that you're doing, you have a problem because their voice is stronger than any press release, any article, any media hit. They are the bread and butter of your public relations campaign. They speak to what type of employer you are. They speak to what type of culture you are. They speak to how you show up in the world. And so internal comms is integral to success. And then people need to know what it is you do, what you have to offer. People need to know your company's brand story. And that's what I work on from an external standpoint. So helping people to know that we are in the business of selling books at Hachette, and making that abundantly clear.
So there's a young lady. Her name is JT O'Donnell. She's a friend of the family here at the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, past guest, and she speaks about everyone being a business of one. And it
Yes.
seems like within an organization or just in general, everybody needs to be mindful that they're their own brand. Is that how you kind of operate?
Absolutely. You are a brand. And so, with you being a brand, you have an opportunity to tell your story. You have an opportunity to brand yourself in significant ways. I spoke at a conference recently and someone asked, how should I be using LinkedIn? I don't know how to use LinkedIn. Should I just put everything that's on my resume on LinkedIn? No, you shouldn't. Right. So, right now, everyone that's attending this conversation, this workshop, you can go on in LinkedIn and say, hey, I had the pleasure of attending a jobs network session hosted by the Urban League, and it really helped me to think about my personal brand in the workplace. That's not something you're putting on your resume, but that's a LinkedIn post. That's a conversation starter. That lets people know you're thinking about your career. That lets people know that you're taking the initiative and you're committed to your personal workforce development, your personal career development. So people need to know what you do, who you are, what you bring to the table. So that's why that storytelling aspect is so important, the five W's and H. And then all of that, what you do, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what puts a smile on your face, that is all a part of your brand.
You set us up lovely because last week we had Cavell Brown from LinkedIn on the Digital Career Success Series talking about utilizing LinkedIn for career success. So, yeah, you definitely can go back and visit the Urban League Jobs Network YouTube channel and find that and additional LinkedIn resources and sessions just to help kind of with your brand. So Gabrielle, as people are kind of figuring out their brand, everybody says, like, I'm not actually sure what my brand is. How do you suggest someone kind of just even get to that point? And let's kind of walk through that journey.
Absolutely. So I would say you should have your top five, whether that's your parents, your siblings, your best friends, your children, and you say, hey, what is it that I'm really good at? What is it that comes to mind when you think of me? And you'll be surprised. The people that care about you the most, the people that talk to you the most, the people that love you the most will say, did you know that you're really good at XYZ? And you're like, oh, wow, that really does come naturally to me. Or, oh, you're a numbers guy. I know numbers are intimidating to me, but I'll come straight to you and you'll spit it right out. And so you can literally survey and ask your community, what is it that you think of me? What would you say my brand is? What would you say my characteristics are? What are my strong points? What comes to mind when someone says my name?
Is there a preferred method for getting that information? Is it just asking, or do you prefer that people kind of really structure it almost like a business conversation?
Yes, that's a great question. I think with your strong, your base, your family, your friends, your loved ones, your children, that's something that's intimate and close. So you can do that anytime, and you should do that often because our brand changes, our interest changes, life changes, things we care about, things that we're super passionate about. It changes as life evolves. But in the business sector, there are other ways to ask, like, hey, is there a way that I can partner with you on something? Or, hey, please let me know if I can be of any assistance. And then someone may come back and say, well, what are you good at? And then you can answer that question. And now you're starting to build that your brand because literally the person asked, how can you help me? And so you have to be ready to answer those questions. And then that's all a part of your brand. Like, oh, I heard that they're really good at this, or they came to the plate and said, I would love to volunteer for this. I would love to work on this, or the next time this project comes around, the next time this opportunity comes around, I would love to be a part of it. And so you have an opportunity to insert yourself into certain growth opportunities.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about growth opportunities, right? So if someone's in, let's just say a performance review,
Hmm.
really looking to convey their brand and they're preparing for their performance review or their
Yep.
evaluation, uh,
Yep.
what are the tools? How should they package that so they can come in and really put their best foot forward and just leveraging their brand and maybe advancing? And look, and
Yeah,
I ask this because you sit in the C-suite, and
I
I know
do.
that people look to you for this type of advice. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you're great at sharing it. So I'd love to learn a little more about this because I think our audience
absolutely.
really benefit from it.
Totally. So I learned earlier in my career is Tiffany Smith on Hawaii, who is Executive Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at CBS, my old
Okay.
employer. Tiffany taught me early in my career, my 20s. She said, no one ever come and give you a bag of money. Say, you're amazing. Let me give you a promotion. You're amazing. Let me give you a new title. You're amazing. We're never going to let you go. The world doesn't work like that. So, in that aspect, you have to advocate for yourself, but you also have to back it up. So, I recommend that everyone continuously updates their brag sheet. How do you identify a brag sheet? How do you start a brag sheet? Every time someone says, job well done, this is wonderful. Thank you for that. You keep accounts of those emails, you put it in a folder. And so you're continuously updating your personal brag sheet or your journal of all your accolades, everything where you went above and beyond. Every time somebody was like, couldn't have happened without you. You are amazing. You are phenomenal. Because those things happen. It's just that when we're asked, we may not be able to say, oh yeah, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. But if you're keeping a running document of all of your successes, all of your praises, when it comes time for an annual review, I come to my annual review with a printout. Here you go. Here's everything I've done over the last 12 months. Here's everything I've been celebrated about. Here's things I've done that have never been done before. These are problems that I solved. Sometimes they weren't even a problem because I didn't tell you because I solved it before I got to you. Here's a list of that. And so having examples, concrete examples, definitive examples to show that you are moving the needle and you're worthy of getting some more money, promotion, growth, etc.
I want to stay here on this brand conversation for a few more minutes because I think it's important. We get this often. People say they're intimidated or maybe a little reluctant to be a public speaker, to
Yep.
speak up in certain situations, right? Most situations, even. So I want to know if you have any advice for them, but also how the current state of the way we worked has changed that with us working on virtual platforms and things of that nature. Any advice for people or any things that you've seen that may allow people to kind of navigate that?
Yeah, there used to be a saying of the talk around the cooler. There used to be a cooler machine, and we go get some water, and people stand around in the talk and chit chat and rub elbows. A lot of us work virtually or work in a hybrid setting. That means you're not having the casual, how's it going? How are the kids? Da, 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 chatter that you traditionally do, which means the onus is actually on you to develop opportunities to remind people of how valuable you are and what you're working on. So that is one thing that is so important to your brand is that you are organically, not in a forceful way, but reminding people of what you're working on. You can open it up and allow yourself to talk by asking a question like, oh, what are you working on nowadays? Because what will probably the question after that is, what are you working on? And so then you have an opportunity to kind of showcase what you're doing. We have to over communicate in these virtual hybrid times. And because there's information overload in a lot of instances, we need to effectively communicate what it is we're doing and what it is we're working on.
Information overload. Now we're in the social media age, and a lot of that's going on. And what I've I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but one of
Mhm.
the things I admire about you, because I follow you on social, and
Uh-huh.
because I consider you a friend, I tap in and just say, wow,
Yeah.
I love what she's doing and what she's working on. But you've managed to strike that balance where it's not too much, but it's enough to get people interested in you and the work you're doing, and you still show kind of the other side of your life and things of that nature. What do you have any rules of thumb? Are there any things that you live by in regards to your social media presence? Because a lot of
Yes.
companies are looking at people's social media before they make
200%.
decisions about bringing them on.
Absolutely. So I would always say your reverend, your preacher, your spiritual advisor, grandparent rule. Never post anything on social media you wouldn't want your spiritual advisor to see, your preacher, your reverend, or perhaps your grandparents. So think about that, because whatever you share online lives forever. I also think about what I want my brand to be in a really authentic way. The most important thing in the world to me is my family and my children. I am so proud to be a mother. And so, in everything that I do and all the ways that I show up, whether it's me sitting in a C suite role or me teaching or consulting, you will know that I'm a mother and my kids come first. And if that doesn't work for you, I'm not in the right place. And that's important to me, to be in the right place. So I will authentically share pictures of my children. Some people prefer, they don't want their children on social media in any capacity. I respect that tremendously. But for me, it's my children are such a part, my husband, my family were such a huge part of who I am as a person and how I show up in the world, that it's important for me to communicate that. So my son's having a birthday in a couple weeks. You'll see a whole bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff on social media. Now, I won't put that on LinkedIn, but I may talk about balancing motherhood and the workforce on LinkedIn. So I'm also cautious of what I share on various platforms, and I try to use them in different strategic ways. In the same capacity, someone may say, "Hey, I'm a very private person." And that's fine. But you're applying to do social media for me. And I need to see that you know how to do social media. I need to see your presence across platforms. So it's fine if you have your private channels for your family, your friends, your true community. But then you should have some public channels so I can see that you know how to operate and do digital social media storytelling. And if you don't have that for me, if you don't have a portfolio for me to look at, I'm not hiring you for this role.
Excellent, excellent. All right, it's the Digital Career Success Series. Gabrielle Gambrell. Listen, we are talking about mastering messaging. Gabrielle, you mentioned in your slide deck that everybody has a dream team. Talk to us about
Everyone
that.
has a dream team. Absolutely. So, your dream team are those who you can say help you to be successful. So, sponsors are people who are giving you praise when you're not in the room, saying this person needs to be on this project. They're phenomenal. I've seen their work. They're the best of the best. I like working with them. They have a good attitude. I mesh well with them. I think you'll like them. Those are conversations sponsors have. Mentors are different. My mentors are the people I'm texting. This is a situation at hand. How do you think I should deal with this? Or, hey, I could really use your guidance on this. So that's like the mentorship aspect. Your teammates are people that you need to get the job done. If, I'm Jordan, but Jordan had Pippen, right?
Yes,
Kobe,
it
one of the greatest to ever do it. My LA Lakers,
does.
Shaq. The Kobe and Shaq duo was like no other, right? So your teammates are important because with them you are more successful, you're more impactful. And then you need people that are just advocating for you. A lot of times in corporate America, we've seen time and time again where if you work for a bigger company or even if you work for a very small company, there may be business decisions that need to be made. And so having advocates to say, hey, we know layoffs are coming, but so and so, we got to keep them just because they are not going to be a part of this layoff process. We need to make sure we retain them, we keep them at the company. Or, oh, they do so much great work with employee resource groups. They lead the Black Employee Network, and the work they do there, even though it's outside their traditional role, is so important. We got to give them some praise or allow them to partake in this leadership opportunity. So advocates are important as well.
Advocates are extremely important. As we kind of create a dream team, I guess when we move through and receive promotions, that team changes. Should that team change?
Yeah, so I think it's really important that it evolves. It doesn't necessarily need to change. I've had mentors I've had for 20 years, and I've
Okay.
had mentors I've had for 5 years. I've had mentors I've had for 7 years. So that is evolving. My old mentors are just as valuable. Some of them have now retired, but I still call upon them in certain aspects. I think it's so important in this digital world, in dealing with the new generation, dealing with Gen Z, dealing with the future Gen Alpha, to recognize that I feel like back in the day, when I graduated college 20 years ago, um, it was a lot of hierarchy based on someone's title, based on that SVP, the EVP, the chief, whatever title. It's like you manage up. Not anymore. You have to manage up and down, because that entry level person who just graduated college a few months ago may be your boss or may be your peer in a year or two. So that's really important. So it's an evolution of your sponsors, your mentors, your teammates, your advocates, how you treat someone who leads individuals and manage team members. How I treat my team members is important, because what if one day we're colleagues? What if they're also in the C suite? What if one day they're my boss? They'll remember if I wasn't kind, if I wasn't respectful, if I wasn't generous, if I didn't have a listening ear. So that's really important.
Extremely important. And also, I believe what's important is professional development. We're in a
Yeah.
world where things are changing rapidly. AI tools in the workplace, uh, even different skill sets that are of value. If we're talking about emotional intelligence and things of this nature, are there any tips, tools, recommendations that you can provide for people that are just looking to enhance their communication skills, to be seen in a different light or more improved light at work?
Yeah, I would say learning is everything. Being a student of the game, whatever that game is that you work in, whatever the game is you aspire to be in, should always be a student of the game. So even at my senior level, I just went to a professional development conference. I tell my students, my undergraduate students as well as my graduate students, I expect to learn from you. I expect to learn from you just as much as you learn from me. Rather, it's consumer habits about your generation, because we're of different generations. And so, all that to say, we should continuously be learning. If you are looking to sharpen your communication skills, it's really important to take content in. So I'm reading articles, I'm reading tweets. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a very lengthy article. It's like who I'm following on X.com, formerly Twitter, who I'm following on Threads. So making sure you're taking in information that's relevant to the industry you're working in, that relevant industry news. So I spend a lot of time reading. The first thing I do in the morning when I'm getting ready in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, washing my face, the TV's on, I'm listening to the news. I record the Today Show, Good Morning America, CBS Mornings every single morning. And at some point, I'll snip through, I'll go to their social media channels, because for me, it's really important to know everything that's happening in the nation and in the world, because that determines what I talk about working in communications. In the same token, every industry has updates, newsletters that you can read, that you can sign up for, that can keep you abreast to happenings, even if you're a teacher and working in education.
You know, re- people are using a lot of different tools out here, whether it's, Chat GPT, Copilot, whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
to improve upon their, I guess, general business writing skills, right?
Yep.
Emails, any type of correspondence. Any tips or
Yes.
anything that you think people should pay attention to as they're using some of these resources?
Absolutely. I am all for utilizing technology. I'm all for efficiency. What is of the utmost importance is don't plagiarize. So my students will use ChatGPT all the time. They'll use AI to create graphics. They'll use
Hey,
AI
hey,
instead of
Gabrielle,
using.
hold on one second. You're with a publishing company now, right?
Yes, I
All
am.
right, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, don't plagiarize. Definitely don't
Don't plagiarize. Period. Though they'll plagiarize. You don't want to present other people's information, other people's writing as your own. That's one of the worst things you can do. And so I find that to be one of the biggest challenges in Chat GPT, because I'm a professor. I give all my students the same assignment. They all use Chat GPT. Now 20 people turned in the same assignment. That's not going to work. But you using Chat GPT and then you putting it in your own words, eliminating the plagiarism, fine. So we should use technology tools to our benefit, but it's important that we can comprehend and then regurgitate in our own words what it is that we are consuming and what it is that we understand.
So as people learn their preferred methods of communication at work, is it really important to tap into what the receiver, how they like to be communicated to as well? Like some people may want direct face-to-face communication. Some people may not want you to text them. We had this conversation before you jumped on in
Uh-huh.
in another context, but I think it's valuable here that people should kind of know and pay attention to how others want to be communicated to. Is that important?
Yeah. It is so important. You could literally just ask. That's a question that you could just put out there and say, hey, do I call you? Do I text you? For me, it's very, I don't know if the word is alarming, but when people just FaceTime me and it's like not my parents to see their grandkids, or it's not like my husband, like you, you're just FaceTiming me. Like, what if my face isn't done? And, so like that's not something that I just want people to do. I've had um in business relationships, whether it's a vendor or someone trying to solicit business, just try to video chat with me. And it's like, no, shoot me an email. And even like setting up a phone call, you got to set up a phone call unless it's really timely or important. Nowadays, it's probably more efficient to set up a call or to email or to text me before actually calling. So that's something that you could literally ask and say, hey, what's your preferred communication method? Should I email you? Should I text you? Are you a WhatsApp person? Some people don't even like want you to text. Hit me up on WhatsApp. Like, okay. And so there's sometimes where you can literally ask a question to meet people where they are.
Yeah, meeting people where they are is extremely important. We get a lot of people, especially when we have the sponsors and mentors conversation, and
Yep.
people sometimes believe that in some of these current work environments, hybrid, virtual, it's hard to, I guess, make those relationships work, right? Any suggestions that you have just from a sheer communication standpoint on how people can not only get in these relationships but nurture them and let allow them to grow?
Yeah. So one little cheat sheet that I use is on most, if not all, email platforms, you can schedule emails. So I touch base with someone, I'll schedule an email for 3 months, 4 months, perhaps a touchy base next quarter to just be like, hey, checking in, how's it going? Or I'm circling back on this, or hey, I just want to, for me, I like to let my mentors know what it is that I'm working on and some of my successes, things I'm proud of, or what have you. So I will check in with all of my mentors at least once a quarter, at the very least, if I'm not just calling them. But that's also because I know some of them are like, just call me, girl, just call me. Um, and then some are quite busy and they're like, email me, then text me. And then if it's really urgent, call me. So we can set up reminders, utilize that calendar. My calendar is my best friend. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. So utilize tools, whether it's scheduling messages in advance or putting reminders on your calendar to keep you efficient and on schedule to touch base. And then some company cultures. I worked at Amazon for years. Amazon was definitely, it's a huge company. I think most recently, maybe 1.2 million employees globally. So Amazon is a really big place. A part of Amazon culture when I was there was people just put a calendar invite on your calendar. And it's like, I don't know who this is. I don't know what they do, but for some reason they want to talk to me or they feel like it's beneficial. And so, depending on your business culture, that may be the norm that someone just puts time on your calendar. You need to figure that out first before you just start doing it. And I was told that as a part of my onboarding process at Amazon that, hey, we're a culture where someone may just think it's cool or they heard you worked on this project and they're putting time on your calendar. And so I did a lot of informational meetings, touch bases to just learn who different individuals were across the company based on meetings that we put on each other's calendar.
But I forgot that you worked for Amazon. Your background is, when's that book coming? I know it's coming. I know it's
One
coming.
day, one day, one day,
All
one
right,
day.
look, let's jump into Q&A. I happened to take a look over there and it is popping. There's a lot of people with a lot of questions for
I'll
Gabrielle.
take it.
So look, I'm going to jump in. Let's do this. So when it comes to networking, it can feel easy to meet people, but how do you turn that network into an opportunity? Also, how do
Good
you
question. Uh-huh.
do you have any strategies on how to maintain that network over long periods of time when life happens? Like, yeah, life and for sure.
Life be life in and
Yeah.
life happens. So, networking, there's a misconception that people should just help you or that people are just really kind and nice and want to see you be successful. Some people are, but most it's like, I got 5, 10, 11 things I'm working on. So, in terms of networking, something that makes a tremendous difference. For one, it's important to know that people like talking about themselves. So giving people the opportunity, oh, I would love to better understand this, or oh, I looked you up. I saw you attended this college or this university, or oh, you're a part of this organization. I've always had interest in this organization, or oh, you're a member of the Urban League. How often do you go to events? Do you go to just virtual events? Do you do in person? So finding an opportunity to organically allow that person to talk about themselves is really good. And then bringing something to the table. So for me, when people reach out to me and say, hey, there's this article about AI in publishing, there's an article about the future of digital social media. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw this and thought of you. And so, oh, okay, you're giving me something. And I read articles all day long. You know that I'm really, really into the news. So you're bringing something to me that can help me in my career. Regardless of my title, regardless of how successful I am, you are finding something to help me to be a better communicator. I've got some time for you.
I love it. I love it. Next question. What is the criteria for someone that someone should look into for a mentor?
That's a great question. When you're looking for a mentor, you should look for someone that is successful, perhaps in a career that you want to work in, that has attributes that you need. Maybe public speaking is not your forte. Maybe you're looking for a mentor that can help you to become more comfortable with public speaking. So you should be attracted to something specifically that mentor can give to you in some way.
Hey, question for you, just a personal question. When did you take on your first mentor?
When I was in college. So when I was in college, I was such a nerd. I knew that I wanted to work specifically in television. I have a degree in television. So I went to my career services department. I went to my alumni department. I said, give me a list of every alum that works in television. And it was like 300 people. And I emailed 300 people. And from that, maybe 7 to 10 replied. And one of those individuals to this day, he retired. He was the executive vice president of sales at CBS, who helped me get in the door. That's why I was a sales assistant at
Love it.
CBS.
Love it.
So me cold calling and reaching out to someone, that's one of my longest mentors.
It's amazing. I think I read that story, or I think I read something about that, and I
Yeah.
just thought that that was a great story of. I was like, she's going to make it. Like she's going to be all right because anybody that goes through that, um, but it only takes one, right?
It only took one. I think out of the 300 plus people I emailed, of like the 7 or so that emailed me back, I met with maybe 5 of them in person, but that one got me a job, right? I earned that job, but it was
Yeah, for
helpful.
sure.
It was
No doubt.
helpful. That executive vice president was like, hire her. And that's important to know that a lot of times that's how things happen. When someone with authority says, hey, let's make this happen, and then it just happens.
So how does someone find a sponsor? Totally different. Well, let's do
Your
this.
work brings sponsors. You
Okay.
doing the best job you can do, you outperforming, you going above and beyond, catching people's attention, like, oh, okay, they know what they're doing. That creates opportunities for sponsors.
Yeah, I think it's there's a. Do you know Alfred Edmond from Black
I
Enterprise?
do. Yes. And I know his children. I know his grandson, little David.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. So Alfred speaks about people, his mentors proving to him that they're worthy of his mentorship. Like it's not a one-way street. Like what can they do for him? So he speaks about
Yeah.
them coming to him, kind of offering some value as well. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that philosophy?
It's so important. I'm super busy. I wear many hats, many roles. And so if you're taking time away from my children, if you're taking time of me away from one of my roles and duties and responsibilities, I want it to be worth my while. And so whether it's I believe in you, I think one day you're going to be the next Michelle or Barack, or I believe that you are going to um, own a very successful brand or company. There needs to be a reason why you, I'm being taken away from these responsibilities to give you my time and attention. And so the best mentees that I have are people that help me to do my job more effectively.
Yeah, exactly. How often do you check in with your mentors?
At least once a quarter.
Once a quarter? Okay. I think you might have spoke about that. Do your mentees go by the same rule?
Not always, but I try to tell them, like, don't come with me with a Hail Mary and I haven't heard from you in a year. It's like, I got you, girl, but I need you to, like, you're trying to bring me up to speed. You're trying to tell me what happened at your job for the last year, and now you have a performance review and you want me to help you to make sure you get the um bonus that you think you deserve or the increase. Like, we need to talk a little bit more often.
Love it. I love it. It's the Digital Career Success Series. Kenneth L. Johnson, Gabrielle Gambrell. You can find this and all the other past Digital Career Success Series episodes by visiting the Urban League Jobs Network YouTube channel. Gabrielle's will probably be up in about a week, but we got her here right now today. And one of the questions is, what is the best book you have read recently?
Oh gosh. Well, right now I'm reading Connie Chung's memoir. I'm such a huge fan of Connie Chung, what she's been able to do as an Asian woman, what she was able to accomplish in journalism. I think she's at a point now. She's one of our authors. So
Okay.
um what she's been able to do in her career. I wrote about her in my thesis. Like I said, I have a degree in television, and so I'm about halfway in, and I'm just like in awe. And when we talk about very far down the line from now, me writing a book, I would hope that my book would be helpful for people to elevate their careers and to not have to deal with some of the hurdles I dealt with. And that is something she's doing in her book, and I admire it tremendously.
Yeah, that's
So it's
very
called Connie by Connie Chung. That's what I'm currently reading.
nice. Nice. All right. So I have another question. It's very career centric, but they basically are saying they were recently laid off and they're working with an outplacement company. They were
Uh-huh.
told their resume shouldn't go back more than 5 years, but some of their best work experiences is from '06, 2011. How
Yeah,
does this work against me? All right, let me jump in here real quick as a
because this is
recruiter.
your expertise.
So listen, um, not sure what the outplacement company is seeing. I have not seen your resume, so just take this advice, as it stands. I always share with people, I probably wouldn't go back any more than 10 years, right? So it's 2024, so that puts you at 2014. However, if there is experience on your resume that relates directly to the position that you are seeking, and it's a little more, it's dated back further than that 10-year window, definitely include it, right? Don't get into a 3-4 page resume, because you're going to want to leave some room to answer some questions in the interview. But I think probably what's more important, and hopefully your outplacement company is giving you this information as well. You're probably going to want to start networking like crazy, build some relationships, use some of the communication techniques that Gabrielle is speaking about today to get yourself in front of hiring influencers and decision makers. But I think that will be as much value as your resume. But I would feel completely comfortable with you going back 10 years. 5 years isn't a lot of time for me to gauge your work experience. And I might actually not consider you because there's not enough work experience. So you definitely want to put where you add value. Gabrielle, any suggestions, any
Yeah.
advice?
I would say your resume should not be more than 2 pages. When people come with really super duper long resumes, I'm like, what? No one's reading past 2 pages. They're just not. And then I would say that it sometimes depends. I've seen some individuals on their resume. For me, I worked at ABC, Disney ABC. I've worked for ABC News. I've worked for CBS Corporation. I've worked for Comcast, NBC Universal. I've worked for three of some of the biggest broadcasters in the world. all more than 10 years ago, but that's going to be on my resume. So even if I don't have a list of all my duties and responsibilities there, I'm going to have that I was director of communications for these organizations. And that's within my 2 pages. If you have really huge, big brands and companies you've worked for, you don't have to have all the bullets and everything you did with that job. But I would beg to differ that it is significant to have those companies listed because there is some brand equity there. Like if these companies thought you were worth it, then okay, I'm going to consider you. I think it's more important that you get to that 2 page range because again, no one's reading more than that, regardless of what anyone says. I also have had people spend so much time on cover letters, and I'm like, but I mean, I'll let you speak more to the cover letters thing.
I haven't read a cover letter in like 15 years.
Okay, all
Yeah,
righty.
so
So
as a recruiter, right? So yeah, that shows you how I kind of feel about them. But there's a format called the disruptive cover letter that I think is really interesting, and they can Google that and find out some information about that process. All right, so I want to get into some questions that I've been wanting to ask you about.
yeah.
So let's talk about this. What are some common mistakes people make in professional communication, and how can they avoid and/or correct them?
Yeah, emotional intelligence is the biggest mistake I see happening. So I worked with a young lady, brilliant, so smart, Ivy League education, double Ivy, went to an Ivy League undergrad, went to an Ivy League for grad school. I teach at an Ivy League, I teach at Columbia University. I recognize how smart you are to be in these spaces. However, this young lady, and she was a woman of color, she had no emotional intelligence. She just couldn't read the room. And so, um, when you talk about advocates and you talk about sponsors, your emotional intelligence speaks to that. Like, how you carry yourself, how you show up in this virtual hybrid role where you may be working from your house. I don't need to every time I see you, you're eating. Maybe once in a while, we're meeting during lunch, we're meeting during breakfast. But if every single time we have a meeting and you're eating on camera, people are going to start to chatter about what you're going to eat today. And so you don't want that. So being able to read the room, and having emotional intelligence is the biggest thing I see hindering people from being successful. Was that young lady smart? No question. Did she do great work? Absolutely. No one wanted her at a corporate table. They felt like if they put her at an executive table, she would embarrass the company and herself. And so, regardless of her work being phenomenal, knocking it out the park, her emotional intelligence halted her career success.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Next question. How does nonverbal communication, like body language or tone, in virtual settings influence effectiveness or the effectiveness of professional messaging?
Yeah, so much we know this because we're always thinking of people and looking at people and the things we interpret on social media. Nonverbal communication is important. And I would also say a part of your brand and a part of your success is how you show up, and your appearance, your body language, your speech all has a lot to do with that. Um I had someone tell me earlier in my career, you don't smile enough. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you need to smile more. And I'm like, but if it's not something positive or something to smile about, she's like, you have a beautiful smile. And when you smile, it just does something and it gives a different energy versus someone that never smiles. People are creating their own narratives of why you're not smiling. And so I'm not always smiling, but I made a cautious effort to smile more in the workplace. And people have said, I love that you're always just so positive. And maybe I'm not, but I'm smiling so they think I'm being positive.
That's interesting because I do peg you as someone that's always smiling. So there's that, right? All
Thank
right.
you.
Another question. As an experienced hire at the mid senior level, is it relevant to include community leadership experience like church, Toastmasters, or community service experience? I'm assuming they're speaking about on their resume.
Yeah, I would say so because a lot of people aspire to have leadership positions in the workplace and they don't. But that adds value to say you can be a leader and you've been respected to lead in various capacities and you've done so efficiently.
Yeah, there's that, and I noticed that Toastmasters was on there. It's always great to show that you are a continuous learner, and anybody that takes their own personal time to get better in that way, I think it's well received by hiring influencers and hiring managers. All right. In what ways can storytelling be incorporated into professional messaging to make ideas more memorable and persuasive?
Mm. So, in terms of being more memorable, it's paying attention to cultural nuances and things that are happening in the world. So, for instance, I had lunch with a coworker yesterday, had no idea he's also from California like me. And that came up organically somehow. And he told me that he's going to the next game. And he's like, if the Dodgers win, it was yesterday. He's like, if the Dodgers win tonight, I'm not going to be able to go to the next game, but I don't want to say I hope my team loses. And so, long story short, I have a memory of him. And if I'm working on anything sports related, if I'm working on anything baseball related, he will now be a part of that conversation because I know he's passionate about baseball. I know he's a Dodgers fan. I also know he's from California. So that's a personal thing. I want to help out the other California person. And so little things like that, like helping people, your workplace, they're not your best friends in the world. However, people should know your interests. People should know what you're passionate about because there may be an opportunity that can help to impact the business.
You started off speaking on about storytelling, and I know there's numbers around it, and you may have it, you may know them offhand, but I've heard that people remember stories at a higher clip than just general information.
Absolutely, totally. I don't know the percentages around that, but if you think about whether it's a celebrity, a musician, or someone in your family, right? If I were to ask who's your favorite athlete, who's your favorite entertainer, and who's the person closest to you in your family, you could give me a story about each one of those people. And so that is indicative of the impact and influence of telling stories.
All right. Last question, real quick, Gab. How can professionals give and receive feedback constructively, ensuring messages are clear and maintain positive working relationships while doing so?
That's a good one. So I use the cookie approach always,
Tell me
rather
about this.
the cookie approach. So you've got the chocolate chip, even though I'm not a chocolate chip girl, but chocolate chip, you got the ice cream in the middle, right? So you start off with something super positive. Even if it's hard to find something positive, you figure it out to say, hey, I really appreciate your attentiveness. I really appreciate your passion. That's always relevant in what you do. However, for the last three projects, it seems like you did not hit the marks. You did not meet expectations. And I would like to understand why that is. And then you say, again, I want to work with you. I want to make sure that we can collaborate and that this is positive. So you start with something positive, just find something positive. The middle is where you kind of get the this is what you need to work on. This isn't good. Here's your constructive criticism. But then you always start and end with something nice and kind. And then people will take it better.
I love the cookie approach. We'll talk about this chocolate chip thing at a later date. But any closing remarks, Gabrielle? You've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I believe in the work of the Urban League and I'm a huge fan of yours, Kenneth. Any opportunity to do anything with you, I'm so grateful. Follow Hachette US on all platforms, Hachette Book Group, one of the world's leading book publishers. We write about everything. We definitely have a book for you. And then let's connect. Follow me. I'm on all social platforms as well.
You didn't jump the slides now. You didn't
Oh,
took you didn't took me to the next slide. All right, listen. I want to thank you for joining us. You gave some great information. I didn't think you could follow up after storytelling. I'm like, that's the go-to right there. But you delivered at each phase of your topic points, and I'm so appreciative of you just taking out the time to spend the day with us and sharing your expertise with the Urban League Jobs Network audience. So thank you so very much. Listen, if you're interested in staying connected with Gabrielle, please do not hesitate to catch her. Gift of Gab, man. If you put that in, she's popping up. I love that moniker right there. But you can catch her on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, two different Instagram handles, and on TikTok as well, and X. So Gabrielle Gambrell, ladies and gentlemen. Also, if you're looking to stay connected to the work that I do, visit eastcoastexecutives.com, or please connect with me on LinkedIn. I tell you guys each and every week, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I continuously get connections, so I'm appreciative of it. And also can be found on IG at KL Johnson Info. All right, we did it again. We will do it again next week. Back to back to back, Gabrielle. Next week, we're doing the art of negotiation. We know this is your thing as well. We probably could have did
it. Yes. Listen, I got some tips for that too.
well, I'll tell you what. Jump in next week.
I'll be in the chat.
Yeah, jump in the audience, come in the chat, and help us out a little. We're going to have Carla with us next week, but join us for the art of negotiation, mastering negotiation techniques for the workplace. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I really want to thank Gabrielle Gambrell for sharing her time with us. You were simply amazing, as I had anticipated. So thank you so very much for joining us and supporting the National Urban League.
Thank you.
On behalf of Corey O'Donnell, Wanda Jackson, and the entire team at the National Urban League, I'd like to thank Gabrielle, but I'd also like to thank you. Our audience is amazing. You guys were amazing again today. Thank you for joining us and supporting us. We'll be back next Wednesday, November 6th, the art of negotiation. We're going back to back to back, so come back and join us.